right, our last section from our textbook this year is section 10.5, and it's about abuses of statistics. All right, so what I want you to take a look at, I've got a list of different things. Everything in your textbook, if you'll notice on this last slide, in fact, I'll put it up here right now first, says group work / homework. These questions are all appropriate for talking about with one another. And I would encourage you to do that. Okay, you're just going to bounce ideas off each other, and it's going to make a lot more sense if you work with somebody else on this section of homework. Right? If you can't, I understand, I get it, but you'll have a lot better experience with this material if you help each other out. So there's lots of different things that can happen with data that make the representation lead you to think something that's not true. That's called abusing statistics. And these are some examples. So we didn't talk a lot about sampling when we looked at this stuff, but this is a really good thing to think about. So I don't know about you, but whenever they do those polling questions on who's going to be president, I know they never ask me. So how do you know who they asked? Did they sample everybody in New York City? Did they sample everybody in Dallas, Texas? Because they're going to be different, right? So who in the world did they ask? How many did they ask? Because if you asked 5 people on OBU's campus, I don't think that's a fair representation. So how many people did they ask? That's a big deal. How many responded? Because also, you've probably had this experience, or your parents have, when they send you a survey in the mail, a lot of people don't respond, right? Or you get one of those surveys at Walmart, and you have this, thing in your mind that says I'm going to win $1,000, so you might respond, but eventually you decide, I'm not going to win $1,000, I'm going to stop responding. How many responded? Because just because they were asked does not mean they actually answered the questions. And if they did answer the questions, why? Was it because they really, really had such a positive experience that made them want to? Or was it a really, really negative experience that made them want to respond? Because you usually get those two extremes. That's what happens when you get reviews online for like hotels or cars or airlines or something, right? Who responded? All right, is it a random sample? That is, did I select all the people in my one class to ask you about at OBU in the middle of Oklahoma? And most of you probably would classify yourself as Christians, because your perspective is going to look different than if I went down the street to St. Greg's, or if I went over to OU, or if I went up to Brigham Young, right? Who was asked? Was it random? That's a different thing. How was the question worded? Because if you word the question in certain ways, people might not be so inclined either to tell the truth or to understand what you meant. Like let's say, for instance, you wanted to find out how many students on OBU's campus, or average or percent or whatever, drink alcohol on the weekends. There are some people who might be inclined to lie to you. You think? Because like you don't want to get in trouble. Or you don't know what's going to happen with that information and where it's going to go. So you might not get a truthful answer. Or perhaps the question's worded in such a way that says something like this. I actually had an issue with my Apple TV thing, and it says, it's an on-off switch, and it says AirPlay applicable. That's not what it says. It says AirPlay removed. So if you say AirPlay removed and you turn that on, that removes it. But if you turn it off, it doesn't. It's worded really weird. Like I have to really look at it and think, am I turning something on or off? Because I'm turning off a feature that enables something. It's weird. I mean, when you word things with lots of negatives or lots of creativity, if you word things weird, people don't always understand what you mean. Graphical representations. You have seen me talk about some of these. It needs a title, right? No title, you're not really sure what you're looking at. The same thing with your axes. The axes have to be labeled, or the slices in the pie chart have to be labeled. You need to know what the world we're actually representing. If those pieces are not labeled, they could mean something different than what you thought they meant when you looked at them. The key to a pictograph is shown. Okay, so we talked about one with the computers last time, remember? It was important that computer was $5 million. That one icon meant $5 million, because you have a different image of what's going on if it meant something different. Uniform size of the symbols in the pictograph. Okay, so I've harped on this a little bit too, right? Like remember the dot plots, and I said make sure that all the X's are at the same level, or make sure that when you do those hearts on the pictogram that I did, that they actually match up, and you don't have one heart that's huge and one heart that's tiny when they really meant the same thing. That's not good. Scale. There's several scale issues. So if the scale, does it start with 0? If not, is a break shown? Do you remember we did that break last time and having sorts of issues because I was not being careful? That break's really important because it actually gives you some perspective of how you're drawing things. Case in point, 2 falls ago, there was data presented on the average ACT scores of students coming into OBU. And if you manipulate the data, that is, you distort it, so you spread it out so it looks taller, zoomed in funny, it looked like it was this huge decline in the ACT score. It was like a 0.4 difference, okay? But if you squish it down really, really flat, it looks like there's virtually nothing. Those are two very different images, and they mean the same thing because of their description. Scale, I talked about this one today. Are the numbers evenly spaced? Right? I talked about that with that stem or the box plot, right? Those actually have to be evenly spaced, otherwise things can look odd or not like they're supposed to. And then there's 2D and 3D misleading features, and I'll let you look at one of those in your book, in fact, because those will allow you more to look at. So take your book, because I'm not going to be able, I don't draw 3D. I don't draw much at all, but this is I could probably do one with more work maybe. We'll do one for your book since you already got it, but take a look at page 619, 619. We're going to look at number 5. 619, number 5, has 2 bar charts of data. They are the same bar chart. Do they look the same? No, because that 3D image on part A has been turned in such a way that it makes it look like, because that's what happens when you do scale. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the scale issues, but it leads you to believe something that's not true. When I look at this, to me it looks like 2011 was just trumping everybody. I mean, like huge. When in reality, if you look at the chart above where it's drawn in 2 dimensions, it's not. It's the same height as year 2009. And you can see that also on page, well, flip back one page before, 619. Same thing. Here's our dog food sales. Problem number 5 again, a dimensions issue. Do you see those dimensions? I don't know about you, but from 2010 to 2011, it looks like 4 or 5 times as big. But if you read the description, you'll have to read it because it's part of your homework. That's not what they were trying to describe. They were trying to use a dog food can, like, I get it, okay? But they actually showed something that wasn't what they really had accuracy to show. Right? So this whole section 10.5 is you looking for the flaws in what you're being presented. And it's very crucial because when you're presented with something in the media, you should be asking these questions. Who's telling me this and why? Because they're wanting me to believe or buy into something, and I need to make the decision about whether or not that makes sense to me based on their information accurately, not because they're abusing the statistics they're showing me. All right? Have a great weekend, guys.